Welcome to Secrets of Stand-Up Comedy. I'm Dick Williams. I'm going to tell you everything I know about comedy so that you can be a better comedian. Stop watching your favorite comic. I know, you're like, what? What are you talking about? Maybe pause it for a little while. Maybe don't watch your favorite comedian for a little while. Here's why. You're starting to sound like them. Do you know how many comics that I see that sound exactly like Mitch Hedberg or Dave Attell or are trying to write like Dave Chappelle? It used to be back in the day, and it probably still is to some degree, although there's been other influences since, but a lot of the black comedians sounded exactly like Richard Pryor. I saw a ton of that in the 80s and the 90s. So you really have to guard against that. Because it's not just their intonations and their cadence, but you start getting influenced by their material, what they talk about. You start modeling yourself after them. It's good to learn from them, but a lot of us take it way overboard. I'll give you an example, one that I saw firsthand, that actually at the time I got upset about. So one of my comedy friends, we're not close friends, but we're comics and we know each other. He did my shows and we'd hang out once in a while at the Improv, is Zach Galifianakis. And Zach got a late night talk show on VH1, and I was so pumped. Everybody knew he was going to be a star. He was so different, so interesting. He was just great to watch. And of course, he went on to huge fame. But with that show, my not only comedy friend, but my close personal friend, who was a mutual friend of Zach's, was Brody Stevens. And Zach, who always looked out for Brody, always gave him tons of opportunities, did the show Enjoy It with Brody for HBO, which went on to Comedy Central. Even back then, he hired Brody to do audience warm-up for Zach's late night talk show. So I'm watching it one night, and I hear Zach doing Brody's cadence. Enjoy it, how dare you, and all that type of stuff. And it's very recognizable if you know Brody or if you've seen Brody's material. Look up Brody. I'll do a whole video on him. I loved him so much. I wish he was still here with us. But I called Brody up and I go, Brody, what's Zach doing? He goes, Williams, don't worry about it. It's fine. I can't even do it anymore. God, he is so funny. He's such a sweet man. But Brody was aware, and Brody also defended his friend. I wasn't like accusing Zach of doing anything wrong. I think because Brody had such a strong presence that if you see him right before you're supposed to do your talk show, it's kind of gets in your head. So there's some comics where, like Brian Regan, if I watch Brian Regan, I'll start doing the yeah. Or who's the other Jim Gaffigan. Oh, he thinks he's very much like this. When he does that voice, you have to be aware of it. You have to ask your friends who will be honest with you and go, hey, do I sound a little bit like Mitch Hedberg? And if they're honest with you and they tell you no, then you're fine. If they're honest with you and they go, we didn't want to say anything, then you have to not watch Mitch Hedberg for a while. And there's plenty of comics that are influential like that. I mentioned Dave Attell. There were comics for probably the last 20 years coming out of New York City that sounded just like Dave Attell. Who are some others? Daniel Tosh. People have picked up on little things that he does and sound like him. You find it sometimes with the edgier comics too. Like I said in one of my earlier videos, I tried to perform like Anthony Clark, but do material like Bill Hicks. And I eventually grew out of that. It was a good starting point for me, but I didn't actually sound like either of them. Be careful, because while it's not technically stealing, in many ways it's a lot worse, because you're stealing someone's persona. You're putting on their essence and performing as if you're them with far weaker material. That's why you need to develop your own voice, and there's videos in here for that, in your own style, and you can test out different ways, but just make sure. And if it takes not listening to their podcast for a while, do it. I'm going to give you one more that I don't know that anybody ever picked up on this. I certainly did. Watch Ellen DeGeneres' stand-up, her specials, especially the early ones. I don't know when the last one was. And then go back and listen to Bob Newhart. I think you'll get what I'm talking about. All right, I'll have another one of these tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, get after it. Be the comic that everybody else tries to emulate. I know you got it in you. You just got to push past some of the fear and the laziness, and you'll get that chewy bone like Bingo's chewing on back there. All right, that's it for this one.